What's going on, everybody? So in this interview, I've got Spencer Cornelia here with me, and he has a very popular YouTube channel where he kind of reviews different scams, different people that could potentially be charlatans, and just kind of gets into a deep dive of the truth behind some of these different online marketing tactics that are out there. So we're going to talk with Spencer a little bit about people who are in possibly your situation where you're trying to learn how to code, you're doing it online from home, and you may be getting bombarded with some of these advertisements from online marketers for different courses that are generally not necessarily affordable. And so we kind of want to weed through that and figure out, like, are these scams? Are they worth taking? Is it worth your time and your money? So Spencer has a little bit more experience with this sort of thing. So I thought I'd bring him on and get his point of view on it. So Spencer, I'll let you take it from here and let's get started.
Awesome. I was watching one of your videos about programming and I miss it. I love this world. Software engineering. It's a beautiful world.
It can be.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you want to discuss first? Where to start?
So I think one thing that my audience would be interested to hear is, how do you spot like a scam? And not even necessarily a scam. That's a strong word, right? Like, because not everything's a scam, but how do you spot something that is legitimate, that is worthwhile, that's worth actually clicking on the advertisement and spending your time and potentially your money on?
One of the main themes of my channel, what I try to convey, is understanding, bringing awareness to the advertising techniques of social media, because I think they apply to every different make money online type niche, and programming is certainly one of them. I think the number one way to be, to really set off the red flags and be careful with what you're seeing is if anything's promising very short timeline to a lot of money. Those two things, be very careful. It's going to have a very low success rate. With the programming world, this industry is very hard. Even if you are one of the best programmers in one of these boot camps, or if you go through one of these types of programs, it is still challenging to find a job. There is no magic secret. You can't just go 6 weeks or 6 months and just immediately come out as a six-figure earner. There's generally the people that do have success. There's generally a reason for that. There are past experiences that they have, connections, networking, whatever. Some people are also just fast learners. But the very, very small minority of people will take these boot camps and succeed. The word scam is thrown around. Now, what exactly is a scam to you? To me, it is you are promised something and you do not have that same return. Now, I don't think courses are scams. I think the way they are sold and then delivered is scam me, in the sense that there is a product being delivered. So it's not a scam, but there are promises that you can get rich quick, or I can promise a job. I can promise you six-figure income if you take this course, and in a certain short amount of time, you will receive this outcome.
Exactly. It's like the carrot in front of the donkey technique. Like, here's this potential six-figure income, and people love to throw around, buzzwords, six figures or a million, or
it's always an even number. It's so funny. It's like, instead of using, hey, the average earner is 64,000, they just use that simple even 10K a month or 6 figures a year. It's very catchy.
Yeah, exactly. It fits in nicely with the message that they're trying to convey. And that, I don't want to be like negative and say programming's not for everyone, right? Because I've seen all different sorts of people throughout my career, whether it be someone with past experience in tech or someone like who just quit a completely different job and just got in front of the computer. They're still typing with 2 fingers, and 6 months later they're building programs and they're hireable. So it's not to say that it's not possible, but one thing that I think we should talk about is expectations, right?
Agreed.
Yeah. So what are some expectations that someone should have when they're getting into this industry, do you think?
Do you think there's a difference between being a programmer and understanding programming?
Absolutely.
I agree. So I think I could teach you variables, truth and falsity values, the difference between JavaScript and Java and HTML and CSS, right? There's a book learning to this. You could buy a book and you can learn about variables. But then there's another aspect that can't be taught. It can be taught. Some people have it a little better than others. Some people access it quicker, and that is to think like a programmer. Can you solve problems? When I present to you a problem, can you analyze code and find the bug and find a solution? That is usually the biggest trick. That to me is the hardest part. is converting someone into being a programmer or having the programmer mind, the ability to solve problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that in interviews, right? I mean, the interview is, although they're kind of annoying and some of them don't make any sense, that is the process that like sets apart people who understand how to solve problems, and then people who just know, I know what a variable is, and I can write a couple lines of code or whatever, or maybe they can make a full program. But when you're in the hot seat and you've got, a whiteboard in front of you, can you ask me questions or ask yourself questions like that will help you come to a solution for this problem? So you see that sort of thing. And that's one of the things that, at least in my experience as an instructor at several different boot camps, I just don't see that being taught, right? They have the curriculum, today we're going to talk about JavaScript, and maybe we'll teach you React or Ruby on Rails or whatever it may be. But no one's saying like, hey, here's this really difficult problem. What are some ways that we can solve it, right?
Well, it takes time, right?
Yeah.
You need to teach someone, if you want to teach someone real estate, the ability to construct a new house, they have to understand all the elements first before they can even come up with the idea on their own to create a new house from start. Same thing with programming. Like they have to have a deep understanding of all the elements. And then when they're presented with a question, then they can think about the question. You know what I mean? There's two different aspects of it. There's the question part, like the high macro level. How do I actually solve this problem? And then there's the micro level of, okay, this line of code needs to go here. This is the for loop. This is how you exit.
Yeah, the time thing is crucial. And I like the real estate example, because we're selling the house we're currently in. And I've been doing all these little I've had contractors working, but I've also been filling in and doing stuff to save money. And it's like, can I figure out how to do it? Sure, I can look on YouTube. Someone out there is going to tell me how to do this thing. But what I've come to realize is the amount of time it takes me to do these things and to do them correctly, and the amount of frustration, like that all translates directly into programming, right? The amount of time it takes you at this point, you're Googling, you're YouTubing, you're trying to figure it out, you're doing the wrong thing, you're breaking it, you're getting frustrated. And what I realize is now where I am with programming, it seems like, oh, it's all up here. But that's only because I already did what we just discussed over and over and over again. So that amount of time it took me to have those frustrations and overcome those things and figure out where to search, and when I search online, which things to that's not useful, this is useful, take that from Stack Overflow, etc. It's like that in and of itself is a skill, and it takes time, and it doesn't take 6 months or 3 months or whatever the duration of the boot camp or the course is.
Right. It takes much longer. That's generally the benefit of the university degree. Yep. Is that you have years of theory, the underlying principles, as opposed to the surface level.
And that's funny that you bring up the university degree, because that's something that you see a lot of with online marketing, where like Caleb Maddox, for example, he's like, oh, like you don't need to go to college to be a millionaire.
Well, all these gurus are financially incentivized by using this terminology of quit the 9-to-5 or don't go to college, it's a scam, because they're trying to get you into believing that their quick little 3-hour course is going to get you to 6 figures. You don't want to go in debt. You don't want to, go in this old model of going to college and getting out and finding a job for $30,000 a year. You can take my course, put it on a credit card, and I'll make you rich fast. Don't buy into that scam.
Put it on a credit card.
So silly.
Yeah. They turn around and make the thing that is like tried and true over time, tested. That's the scam, right? College is a scam. It's funny because I was just telling my wife the other day in the car, I was like, man, I wish I had when I went to college and I got my bachelor's degree, I wish I had just started with programming. I would have had an extra 4 or 5 years worth of, software development education. And there's a lot of paradigms and things that you don't learn in these boot camps. And then I see it constantly. I saw it on our Facebook group the other day for the Web Developer Boot Camp, where someone said, like, at what point do you not feel like you're drowning, right? You already have the job. You've made it that far. You're working, you have coworkers, you're getting a paycheck, but you still just feel totally out of your element. And it's like, those are the things that take time, right? You can get the job. I've seen people do a boot camp and get a job before they even graduate. So you can get a job in 11 weeks. That's great. But you still have to realize that it's going to take years before you're comfortable in that role and comfortable enough to where you don't feel like you're just totally out of your element. which
If I could go back, I would have done a 4-year CS degree. No doubt. No doubt in my mind. I was a sport management degree, which is pretty much useless. But if I would have done computer science degree, I would have been much better off.
Not entirely useless, because I've seen some of your videos where you have a good insight on some of these athletes and
that's fair.
Their financial situations.
That's fair.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I mean, for me,
for this context,
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, my BFA wasn't entirely useless either. I learned how to edit videos and stuff. So I was like, okay, I use that with YouTube. Great. Yeah. But I still would have appreciated 4 years of computer science. So in the developer space, there's just standing out in my mind, there's like two groups of things that people are going to want to look out for. There's the online. Well, now a lot of the in-person boot camps are moving to online, so we'll just kind of group them together. So there's the boot camps, and when I say boot camp, I'm generally talking about the ones with like between a $5,000 and $25,000 price tag, and between, let's say, 6 to 24 weeks. And then there's also it's really just one person, and I'll just name drop him, but it's Rafi Kaze from Clever Programmer. I'm so conflicted about this guy's work, because he offers a lot of free stuff on YouTube, right? Which is great. But then he has these courses, and I'm not saying if you put a bunch of time into a course, and I know firsthand what it takes to build a course, then yeah, you should get paid what you're due. But the problem is with web development is all that stuff's available online for free. So
here's the real problem. You probably remember this in 2013. It was Hack Reactor or I can't remember the exact boot camp, but the guy starts in San Francisco. He starts a boot camp because there's a need for it. All of his friends are asking. He starts this little boot camp, and in 12 weeks, he gets these friends employed. Well, at the time, these tech companies had a lot of money. A lot of money was pouring into these tech companies because the venture capitalists were going, man, these are all home runs. And so there was an absolute need for programmers. If you knew how to do HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you were so far above the marketplace that in 12 weeks, a very simple course could get you 6 figures, because there was not enough people that could do JavaScript. And so if you knew any JavaScript, you are a standout. The problem is this model still exists today, but you've seen an oversupply of programmers into the industry. And so there used to be a need for junior level programmers, whereas now, in order to get employed, that junior level market has already been wiped out. The standard for reaching the entry level employment is much higher than what it was.
Yeah.
That's the real problem.
Yeah. So again, it circles back to expectations. If I were a junior developer again, would I spend 15 grand or take out a loan like I did and go take a boot camp in San Francisco and live in one of the most expensive cities in the United States? No, not a chance, right? I'd live somewhere cheap, affordable, with family or friends, and I would get in front of a computer and learn online from any one of these either free or very inexpensive resources that are available. Now, there's a whole nother topic there of like, how do you know what to learn? And that can be difficult, right? So it is kind of alluring when someone offers you a structured course and they say, this is what you need to learn, A to Z, don't worry about all the other stuff. So there's some value in that. But the next step, of course, is getting the job. Because once you have the job, that's where you start building the experience.
I think we're even going too far. I think the first thing is figuring out if you even like it.
Yes.
Right? You need to take a Udemy course for $30 or do some of these free courses on Free Code Camp. If you hate writing code, quit now.
Yeah.
Because it gets way worse. You got to love this stuff. In order to be employed as a developer, you have to like enjoy at 10 p.m. at night having a problem sitting in your head, like a bug that you haven't found. And then you dive back into the code and look for it at 10:30, 11 p.m. Like it's got to bother you that you can't find the solution. You have to have that.
Yeah.
In order to be employed.
I really appreciate you making that point, because a lot of people don't get their feet wet, right? They've got, they need money for rent or whatever it may be. And so they've got this pain, and then someone steps in and says, hey, you can make 100K. I mean, that's what happened to me. Honestly, I was driving for Uber, right? I was broke in an expensive city. And one of my customers in the back seat said, hey, I work for this boot camp. You should check it out. Like, you can make a lot of money. And then the very next person I picked up said, hey, I graduated from a boot camp and I do make a lot of money. So I was like, wait, like
wow,
this person,
the way of the world.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I was just like, of course, at the time I'm like, well, like I can make money from coding. Like, of course. But what would have happened if I didn't like coding, right? And I got $20,000 in debt? That's not a place you
Exactly.
want to be,
This is part
right?
of the problem with advertising is when you use not necessarily the reality. So running a business is really hard, but if you promote it as you can make seven figures, this is the easiest way to make seven figures. All you need is a laptop and the ability to call some people. It's like, yeah, a lot of people are going to get suckered into that. But if you use the sales pitch of this is actually incredibly difficult, you're going to have to sit on the phone call all day and deal with rejections. Maybe once a week, you'll be able to land one client for $1,000 a month. Then the next month you have to go out and make sure you service that client such that they're happy enough to then give you $1,000 the next month. Oh, and on top of that, you still need to be making sales calls. It's like if you gave the realities of the business, most people wouldn't buy into these courses. Same way with programming. If you said, hey, this is incredibly challenging, you're going to be so frustrated. Any beginning programmer, if you go through the boot camps or university, it is incredibly frustrating when you aren't good at programming. Like the beginning, whatever the training wheel level is, it's going to be very frustrating. It's going to be all problems and you have to come up with solutions. It's going to be very frustrating, but no one would buy. And so they stick to claims of money, of quick income. Don't want to leave that 9 to 5 and be able to work from wherever. See this, I'm in Puerto Rico right now,
Yeah, that's funny. The Puerto Rico thing. That makes me think there's a guy in Udemy. I've never taken his course. He's got great reviews, so I'm sure it's fine. But he did use that element of marketing where he's like palm trees in the background, on my
I can
laptop.
code on the beach.
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's just this template that these marketers use, and there's different variations of it. But it's basically like money is front and center. Don't think about all the little details. Like, are you going to enjoy this job? Because if you're not happy, you couldn't pay me $1 million to work a job that wouldn't make me happy.
You need to have a certain, not intelligence. Intelligence isn't the best word because I don't want to gatekeep here because there are people that might not have that much, but can get really good at one skill. But it is a mentally demanding skill. If you're used to physical labor outside, you work with your hands, maybe you're an athlete, it's a career that's only meant for certain people, right? Like I wouldn't make a great musician. I don't have what it takes to have that be my work. I don't want to spend 8 hours a day in a studio thinking of like one line to write, so it's not for me. Same with programming. Like I think a lot of people wouldn't enjoy it if they actually had to do it day after day.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing that people don't take into consideration. You're going to spend at least 8 hours a day in front of a computer, and if you're not practicing good posture and taking breaks frequently,
It's
and
very
all this,
socially isolating.
exactly.
If you're used to talking to people, if you want to go out and spend all your day, some people who are in sales, they enjoy communicating with people every day. A lot of programming is headphones on, some type of EDM playing, and you're by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you work on a team, like the team meetings are quick in the morning. What did we work on? What are people struggling with? And then the rest of the day, maybe you have someone next to you that you can ask questions to, but like
Sure.
you have to be focused, right? You have to get in the zone and get stuff done.
I think the place to start, if you're watching this and wondering, so Stanford CS 106A has an excellent course. They do an intro to programming. It's on YouTube. They also have the course available if you just want to Google Stanford CS 106A. It's Java. That's a great place to start. If you go through that, it's their lectures for the full semester.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's 30 lectures of 1 hour each, completely free. If you do that and love it, it's a pretty good indication that you should be in this industry. If you go through that and can't make it through it, quit now while you can. So that's a good place to start. And then open source computer science degree. There's like a GitHub with open source.
Yeah.
It's like all the free course. So anyway, there's
Yeah.
Free Code Camp is another one. There's free resources out there. I think going through some type of structured free resource would be the best place to start.
Isn't that crazy? Like these boot camps, they have decent instructors, some of them better than others, but there are like university level courses that are completely available for free, like CS50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of courses doing both General Assembly and Hack Reactor. I actually speak incredibly positive of Hack Reactor,
Mhm.
but I think how you enter the program really matters. You mentioned to me that you did General Assembly, you had some previous tech experience.
Yeah.
I did Hack Reactor working, by that point I'd have been 3 or 4 years in a software development team for a tech company, and I had General Assembly experience. So my Hack Reactor experience was basically taking me from kind of more beginner level to ramping me up to employment level. And if I didn't have that prior experience, I think it's a way different interaction with the program. In my experience at General Assembly, I found that I think the top third of the class all had previous experience in something related to programming. The bottom third, which I found myself in, I was one of the worst students. They were the people that had no prior experience in anything tech. It's just too hard. It's too hard. In 12 weeks, you can't become a competent programmer. You just can't if you have no experience.
Especially when there's like one, maybe three instructors and like a handful of TAs for like 25 students.
I didn't even, yeah, to be fair, I actually didn't even find that to be, it's just a matter of, here's a fire hose. How much can you drink? Like you physically can only take so much. You only have so much mental energy in a day to comprehend all this new material. It's really mentally demanding.
Even working for somewhere like Galvanize, where they do a 24-week course, I thought, oh, 6 months, that's plenty of time. Like that's way better than what I experienced and what I have been experiencing at some of these other jobs. Even that equation wasn't very good because students were getting burned out, right? Like it's just like the 3 months times 2. So you're halfway through and you're just like, oh my God, like I'm not understanding this. Am I ever going to get a job? It just gets harder and harder towards the end. Like
my hack reactor was the 36 week. It was,
oh my gosh.
It was, yeah. So it was part-time. I have to admit, I think it's absolutely the best model. Here's why. People were already employed, so you didn't have the stress of paying bills. Everyone who was in it at least had their bills paid and their families covered, right? You could do it at night, and it also allowed for a lot more time to let principles sink in. And so when we learned something, we were able to spend the next 2 or 3 days applying it. I think that's why the students in that specific curriculum had in my opinion, from what I saw, I felt like they had a much higher understanding of the material.
Part-time is fantastic. I actually did a part-time, I want to say 3-month course at General Assembly before I did the full-on 12-week boot camp. And that was my getting my feet wet, right? That was like the smaller investment. Just in the weekends, I was still working a job or it was, in the evenings. And I was able to determine if it was for me or not. And I wasn't incurring a bunch of debt. At which point, then I was like, you know what, I'm ready to take on this big loan and commit because I enjoy this and I think it's for me. So for sure, part-time, something like Hack Reactor or any of these resources that we've mentioned, just in the evenings, and find a way to be disciplined and diligent about staying on top of it. And, if it's for you, you'll know. And if it's not, then don't try to make it be,
Agreed.
So when you were at Hack Reactor, you were in a position, right?
So I worked QA. I was doing QA analyst. I got the job after General Assembly. I moved here to Las Vegas from Oakland, California. And at the time, I was not a good programmer, especially once I got on a team and I saw the real world coding and engineering. I wasn't even close to ready. So thankfully, I got my feet wet with QA analyst, which, as you probably know, is like kind of the entry level position into this world. Throughout my job at Shift 4 was the company. They're now a public company. I'm no longer employed there because of the health pandemic. Over the years, I got to kind of learn on the job. I was able to build some small projects coding, and I wanted to get back into programming. And so I took Hack Reactor's part-time program because I was employed, and then I was able to do Hack Reactor at night. And at the conclusion of Hack Reactor, I decided I was actually building an app for real estate, and I kind of wanted to go that route. I ended up deciding it wasn't for me, and I wanted to stick with real estate and YouTube as opposed to going the programming route. I had an interview lined up with Facebook for software engineer, and I did the math, and I actually earned more here in Vegas from my real estate and then from what was my job at the time. So it didn't make financial sense to go back. But in an alternate world, real estate and YouTube would have been on the side, and I would have gone and probably gotten a software engineering position somewhere in Silicon Valley.
So that makes me think of two things. One, when you're a software developer, the education never stops, right?
Dude, it's exhausting, man.
Until you retire, you're going to be learning new stuff, and you have to be okay with that. You have to enjoy that, right? I've talked to people who are, in their 40s, 50s, and they're like, man, I don't even use any of the stuff that I learned 20 years ago. Every single framework, language, whatever they were using at the time, it's all changed. We had to relearn everything new. Now, granted, once you have that education and like the general principles and the fundamentals, it's a lot easier to transition into something new. But still, learning takes time, and some of these new things, they're completely new, right?
Right.
And so the education factor never stops. And that's not something they'll tell you in these 6 figures in 6 months. You learn it in 6 months, then you're done. It's not like other jobs. You learn for 6 months, and then you learn for another 6 months, and then you learn for another 16 years,
Yeah, and then heaven
And
forbid your job gets cut out when you were writing Java code, and then the next employment opportunity for you is learning C sharp, and it's like, well, you you need to learn it if you want to get a job. One of my coworkers at the company that let me go, he had been doing cold fusion for like 10, 15 years, right?
mhm.
Well, he gets let go, and then no one really uses cold fusion anymore. So if he wants to get employed in an industry that he has 10 to 15 years experience, he now needs to learn new skills, right? And when
Yeah,
you're a family man, when you're 35, 40, 45 years old, it's not as fun. It's not as easy as it was when you were 25, right? Because
no.
you get kind of set in your ways, and then having to go out and learn React and Angular, it's like,
Yeah. All this makes me think, that guy I mentioned earlier, Rafikazi, he's got cleverprogrammer.com. And, I don't know if his courses are good, right? I know they're overpriced for the competition. I know they're overpriced. I just know that his marketing tactics, if you see his ads on YouTube and Facebook, they're very like money, 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 shortcut, 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 profit, profit, all these buzzwords that are just like, yeah, that's what I need. And it's not like, hey, is programming right for you? Which, we've talked about, it doesn't sell, right? It's not going to sell your course if you're like, dip your feet in. If it's not for you, then it's okay, right? But with something like the course that I'm part of on Udemy, it's a $15 investment, right? That's like a latte for most people, and not only that, but you have a 30-day money back guarantee. So there's very little risk involved. Well, anyway, circling back to this guy, because you're a YouTuber and I'm a YouTuber, and you being far more successful than I am, he's got a new course out that basically shows people how to get he says first 1,000, I think, or he'll take you to like 1 million subscribers, something. But basically it's like, be a profitable YouTuber like me. Like he's got this formula that you can, and you and I know firsthand, there's no formula for YouTube, right? Like there's things that you can do, and there's things that you can look at other creators who are successful and try to mimic those things. And there's the fundamentals with things like titles and thumbnails and all of that. But as far as being able to wrap it up into a course and be like, guarantee you're going to make money like I did.
here's this
Like,
nice, pretty package for you.
yeah, exactly. So I saw that just moments before jumping on the call here with you, and I was like, I can't believe it. Like, what
Yeah,
happened with
what
the
I'm hoping to do
codings?
with my channel, hopefully it gets big enough where I have like real influence over people's decisions, because part of it is egotistical, right? It's like the way I see the world, I think is better than this certain way of doing, right? That's what people really talk about, right? When they want to have influence and impact, it's all egotistical. It's like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
see the world better than what anyway. So I'm seeing this course, it's becoming very prevalent in every industry, right? People have a little success, they turn to selling courses, which I actually think courses are great in a lot of ways. I want to help people detach from the advertising. I want them to stop thinking that there's ways to get rich quick, or that there's easy ways to make money, or that you can sign up for this course and you're going to be successful. I want people to be aware of that, so that anything they take on, they understand that's going to take years. You
Yeah.
mentioned YouTube. I opened up a Patreon. I was thinking about doing coaching. I've coached a few friends. Right now I'm coaching a guy who's like a kind of actually semi-celebrity in the music business. And it's hard. There's no secret. Like if you don't have any success off the platform on YouTube, like if you don't have something to point to, some type of credibility or some type of influence, good luck. How are you going to compete? It's going
Yeah.
to take years for you to find your lane, or to be able to tell stories, or to be a credible news anchor, because that's kind of what YouTube's become, right? It's like any type of drama or current event, let's talk about it. That's essentially what YouTube is in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
so
Trending topic.
there's no, even if I told you the exact formula I did, I've only built one channel. I don't know if I could build a second one. I don't know. I don't think I can. YouTube's
Yeah.
freaking hard.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to people where I was with them when they started their channel at 0 subscribers, and now they've got multiple channels with, a couple million on this one and a couple 100,000 on this one. And even those people who are killing it, right? They don't even like, they did it. They're living the dream. They can't tell me in words like, hey man, this is what you should do for your channel.
A lot of it is luck too. The algorithm just likes you at the right time. I mean, it's a very mentally demanding position too, which I don't love it as my main source of income right now, because you're so tied to the views and the ups and downs. February, for instance, my views are down like 80%. I'm spending the same amount of time. I'm doing
Yeah.
videos that are similar to the ones before, but views are just down big time. And you have to learn to ride those waves. And it sucks. So how am I going to have confidence where my channel is, yeah, by a lot of metrics doing great, but at the same time, I'm sitting here in my house thinking to myself, am I still good enough? Do people even want to watch my videos? When you get 2 straight 10 out of 10 videos,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like the worst feeling in the world.
Just to kind of close things up, what's like one major piece of advice that you would give anyone who's looking to, work from home or learn to be a programmer? And I know you've got experience in other fields like real estate and obviously YouTube. So anybody who is trying to just change their career, but then become susceptible to these types of online marketing tactics that we've talked about, well, what's a good piece of advice that you would leave the viewers with?
I generally tell people to get a 9 to 5. I think getting a 9 to 5 is the best way to do it. Like, even if it's not in programming, getting something, like, to me, having stability, because most people aren't entrepreneurs, right? Like, even though a lot of people get on Instagram and everyone's an entrepreneur nowadays, like, most people really aren't, right? A true entrepreneur is the guy that's like, screw money, I will live on someone's couch and try to create something new. Mm-hmm. Most people aren't that. So most people need to go the route that I took. And this is the most probable path to success, financial success. Get a 9 to 5. And in that 9 to 5, you have a certain amount of days dedicated to the work that will help pay your bills. And then after those hours are done, you then spend the next set of hours, however much time and energy you have, on your hobby. And if you want to get good at programming, you take a small course or you do the free resources I mentioned earlier. And if you like it, great, you can continue. If not, go pursue something else. And if you do like it and do find yourself wanting to build projects and loving learning Java, love learning C#, then maybe start with a Udemy course, and then you start getting into it and go, man, I love this. Then maybe consider kind of going up the scale of learning more and more. Or maybe you just get books. I have somewhere above me over here, I've got programming books for learning algorithms, right? Who in their right mind sits around and learns algorithms? Well, I wanted to learn. So I spent time learning what would be taught or what would be presented in a job interview.
There's some advertiser on YouTube, and I don't know who he is, and I don't know if his stuff is good. Generally, like, if I see advertisements on YouTube, I'm like, this person trying to steal my money. But he said something funny. It was, it's about stocks or whatever, and he was like, the best stock is JOB. Go get a job, like 9 to 5. That's where you make your money. And then, whatever the rest of the thing was about, be smart, to take a portion of it, invest it, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, that's such a valuable piece of advice. Get a job. I understand the pain of like, okay, now if I get a full-time job, I don't have any free time. And maybe that full-time job isn't something that you're thrilled about. And so now I don't have the free time to pursue my dreams. So there is some balance there, and there is some sacrifice and some hard decisions to be made. But I do still agree with like the underlying, like, a job is going to create stability for you, and it will create opportunities for things like networking and
mental stability. You need it. If you're trying to learn something new like programming, you can't be stressing about food. You have no chance of learning programming if you don't know if you have enough money to pay for dinner.
To be able to have a job, just to have that stability, and then branch out little by little over time into these other things that, do you think you might be able to diversify and maybe start a YouTube channel or maybe just some type of work from home stuff? Like, that is all valuable, but having that 9 to 5 to anchor you down, I think, is crucial.
There's too much messaging now because of the online gurus. They are so prevalent in the YouTube and any type of Instagram. They're going to be there, right? Mm-hmm. And their whole message is quit the 9 to 5. That's not for you. Their entire message is trying to manipulate you into thinking that you're more than a 9 to 5, and it's a miserable experience if you work one. We need to go back to going, hey, go to college, get a nice stable job for 5 or 6 years in your 20s, get a rental property or two with the income that you save up. And if you want to transition careers, you can also spend time learning. That's the most probable way of having financial success.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever, and I know you've mentioned it in some of your videos, how Instagram and Facebook. I don't use Facebook anymore for this exact reason, or Instagram for that matter. But it's just like these dopamine hits of like, look what I've got. My life is perfect. And people want a shortcut to this like fake reality that they're seeing, they're being bombarded with. And
it's all the outliers too.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Because you're only the messaging that you're receiving, almost everyone is in the 1% of something, whether a physical appearance, especially Instagram, like most of the people with the biggest follower counts are going to have the best appearance physically. They're going to be the smartest. They're tall and good looking. They're able to travel the world. Like, you don't see what their full lives look like. You don't know what advantages they had. You don't know that they might have scammed their way. They might be renting everything just for that single ad.
Yeah.
It's all a facade.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. Well, Spencer, I really appreciate the time you've taken to jump on here and talk to us and share your knowledge with us. Hopefully we can get you on again here soon, and we'll catch you later, man. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks for having me.